Pre-primary blitz, episode 3, claim the seat, face the people. This episode today is called History on the Ballot. Are we ready? Today we're diving into history, but also pressure. Dr. Flojaune Cofer has the opportunity to become the first Black woman to serve as a Sacramento County Supervisor, and that matters. But Black versus the Board of Education is pushing past the headline because being first comes with a lot of weight. Expectations from the community, resistance from systems not built for you, and the pressure to both represent and to perform. The deeper question is representation enough, or does real change require something more? Today, we're going to unpack what it takes to break barriers and sustain leadership after, whether systems truly shift when history is made, and how leaders navigate being both a symbol and decision maker. For young people, this is about understanding that representation opens doors, but leadership determines what happens next. Welcome to Black versus the Board of Education.
Baby.
We in here, yeah, we in here, 'cause we been.
Y'all better get comfortable with saying black.
We in here, yeah, we in here, 'cause
Black versus the Board of Education.
'cause we came here, rid of us now. We in here, yeah, we in here, 'cause we came here, rid of us now. And you know, and we know, and we go, so you do what you want.
That's why we are indeed a whole mood.
That's it.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Black versus the Board of Education. My name is Miss Laureen, and we, the crew, welcome you into this space. And I have to tell y'all, all 6 of us are in the same room at the same time.
Oh, see, now I feel bad.
We're in here
And so,
now.
y'all should really be scared. Today we're talking to Dr. Flo. She has made it onto the screen, and so we're going to kick it to the co-host, let y'all know who's in the building, and then we're going to go right to Dr. Flo because we don't want to miss a single second of this conversation. So I'm going to start right here. We'll just go around the table. So Mr. Take it away.
How you doing, Mr. Fox, BYLP advocate, time done advocate as well.
My name is Melissa. I'm a student at UC Berkeley, and I'm excited to be here today.
We're so excited to have you.
Hello, everybody. Daniel Chastain, BYLP representative, here enjoying.
Patrice Hill, a director of SES, a longtime educator, poet, and community worker.
Hey, y'all. It's Denisha Coco. I am the associate director of SES and also just a poet and longtime resident of Sacramento as well.
I know you didn't say just. You better stand 10 toes down in that title.
Right.
And I'm just a resident troublemaker, and I'm so happy to see my good sis is joining us today.
Yeah.
Before we get into this conversation, I just wanted to let it be known. Your opponent is welcome to come on this show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anybody who's running is welcome to come on this show. Everybody gets the same treatment. That does not mean that we like you or we don't like you. It just is what it is. So please feel free to come and face the people because we got questions for you too.
Yeah.
But let me go ahead and kick it to Dr. Flo. Hey.
Hey, how are y'all? I know everybody's in the room. I'm like, man, I should have just gotten in the car and come over there. It was like getting so close, and you were like, there's this option. I was like, I don't want to be late. Y'all gonna be live at 4:30. I was like, let me play it safe. But man, now I feel like I'm missing out on a party.
Oh, girl, it's going to be a big party in here today. And I'm actually going to ask them to turn on their is the cameras on there? Can they see you if you guys turn those on? Because I want all of us on the screen because it's not normal that everybody's in the room. Okay. I don't see the, there they go. Are you guys able to turn on your camera?
Oh, yep. I think so.
Let's see.
Did you hit it?
I did.
I'll turn this.
Well, you already on the screen.
We whole mood.
You on the green, Fox. There we go.
Okay, so-
Hey. Now it's a real party.
It's real party.
Yeah, because we want everybody on the screen because we're going to probably have some reactions and we don't want to miss it. So when Isaiah, when you turn the camera, you can still turn it to them when they're talking. But we want to make sure that everybody is always represented on the screen. Okay, cool. So Dr. Flo, take it away.
All All right. Well, I am Dr. Flo. I am an epidemiologist who has worked in public health, and I'm running for a Sacramento County Supervisor in District 1. The number one question I get from people is, what is a county supervisor? So I guess I should start there by saying that a county supervisor is a member of a 5-member board. So there are 5 of them for every county, and California has 58 counties. So there are 5 members of each board that basically decide on a lot of the things that matter to your life. And most people have never heard of their board of supervisors. And in Sacramento, I feel in some ways like that's by design, but the county is responsible for human assistance, for public health, for child welfare, for the courts, for the jail, for the sheriff's budget. The county is responsible for elections. But in addition to that, you live in the unincorporated parts of the county. So you're not in one of the 7 cities that are in the county of Sacramento. So city of Sacramento or Elk Grove or Rancho Cordova or Folsom or Galt or Ileton or Citrus Heights or any of those cities. Then you actually, the county is your only government. So all the stuff that cities do for you, like your trash and your recycling and sometimes your sewage and, you know, and paving your roads and doing economic development and all of that, the county is the only person at the local level you turn to, because you don't have a mayor or a city council member. So for us in Sacramento County, that means this 5-member board is responsible for almost $10 billion with a B dollars a year in spending. And they are the ones who manage healthcare, so Medi-Cal. They are the ones who manage food assistance, so CalFresh. They are the ones who do so many things that impact our lives. And like I said in the beginning, most people couldn't name their county board of supervisors. Most people don't know how many people are on it. And most people don't know that their budget is 6 times bigger than the city you live in.
Wow. Okay. Educate us, because this is what it's all about, because a lot of people don't know. There's a lot of representatives that our community doesn't know actually is supposed to have their back. So thank you for saying all that. I'm going to start with the youngest on the panel, because she's the youngest and it just is what it is. So what's your question, my love?
Hi, thank you for being here today. One of my questions is, how does people not knowing what your role is, or the role that you kind of stand for in that group of people, how does that affect the community?
Yeah, so I think it harms our community in a lot of ways. And here's why. Because if people don't know that you exist, then people can't tell you what they need. And also that means that you're also not out with your ear to the ground, you know, hearing what is happening in our community and knowing what is needed. So it's a two-way street for information. And you'll sometimes hear people in the community talk about this concept called NIMBY or YIMBY, right? Which is not in my backyard or yes in my backyard. And I've always felt that, you know, dividing our community up into whether we say yes or no to something is a really silly way to define things, because I'm actually more curious about, why are you a yes? Or why are you a no? That actually helps me figure out what we should do, because I might say, hey, Patrice, you know, we want to put up this park across the street from your house. And you might say, no, I don't want that. And, you know, and then Lorraine might say, yeah, I do want that. What do I know other than your yes or no? I don't know why. And Lorraine might say, yeah, I want that because I have young kids and that would make my life so much easier if I could go outside and have this park. And Patrice might say, I don't want it because I'm worried that y'all aren't going to take care of the trash, that, you know, there's not going to be any lighting there, that it's going to be a mess, right? And I don't want this here. And so, but knowing your why lets me know, okay, hey, this could be good. And Patrice's only arguments against it are she thinks we're not going to maintain it. So if we can make some commitments to make sure it's not going to have a bunch of trash and it's not going to be a gathering spot for, you know, anything that she doesn't want, Patrice might turn into a yes. So when you don't listen to the community, when you don't have a relationship with the community, you don't get the benefit of knowing if what you're doing actually matters to people. What if everybody in the community goes, no, I don't want a park. What I really want is a school, right? Like you don't know what's going on if you don't talk. So the community not knowing who the county is and the county not engaging with the community means that we're not making as good of decisions as we could be if there was an open line of communication and a conversation to be had.
But can I pause this question posit this question? Is that by design?
Yes. Oh, it is absolutely by design. Can I tell you something?
Yes, please.
I have met with all of the county supervisors, and during one of the meets, so the other 4 people that I'd be working with when I hope I win on June 2nd, and one of them said to me, Flo, what I keep hearing is that you are the front runner in this race, and that if you win, people are going to start showing up on Tuesdays and fussing at us.
Huh.
And I said, well, do you need to be fussed at? Right? Because I mean, what's inherent in that is this is a cushy job where we're making $175,000 a year, and we get to have our meetings from 9 to 5 when most of you are at school or at work, and we get to make our decisions, and nobody's any the wiser about it. And then I get to go home and enjoy my life, and I want it this way. And I don't want to have to work any harder. I don't want to have to hear from you and for you to ask me to do things I'm not currently doing. I don't want that. And that to me is sad. So when you ask, is it by design? Absolutely, it's by design. It is by design so that you can't come and say, I don't want my dollar spent this way, or I do want my dollar spent this way. It's by design so that we don't think about asking the county for money for things like violence prevention. It's by design that we don't come in and say, why are you building this in this community when there's no access to water and when it's going to make transportation harder? Why aren't you putting in protected bus lanes so our babies can get back and forth to school and to work every day? Why aren't you investing in the kind of jobs that are going to help to protect our environment and to also pay us good living wages? Like, there are questions that need to be asked. And if you don't know I exist, you don't ask them. And then I don't have to worry about the fact that I'm not serving you well.
Wow.
I like that. I thank you for that. So something just stood out for me, right? It's about what you were speaking on, but about maybe us trusting the system, people having a distrust or trust for, right? Whichever one. How do we lead people? How do you lead people?
I just stop.
Forgive us. How do you lead the people who don't trust the system?
Yeah, so I think trust is earned. It's not given. And I think, quite frankly, people have a reason to be distrustful. And so one of the things that I recognize as unfair, maybe as it might feel as an individual, I am an adult. I am 43 years old. I am running for this position, and I'm doing it with full consent of what I'm stepping into. I'm stepping into an institution that is, well over 100 years old, and that has done harm in our communities. So I am going to have to show up in spaces and apologize for things I didn't agree for and that I wasn't around for, and that I didn't do. But I represent this institution now that has harmed people. And so that is the job. The job is for me to show up in ways so that I can build that trust back with people and earn their trust. So I don't go into the room with people trusting the county. I hopefully go into some rooms with people trusting me and knowing that I'm going to try to do right by them in this position. But I also recognize I'm representing an institution that has been sneaky and secretive and underperformed and caused harm. And I'll give you just the most big scale recent example of that was COVID. Right. So during COVID, when we declared the pandemic, the federal government decided to allocate dollars to be able to help local governments address COVID. And Sacramento County was given $300 million in the first round of what was known as the CARES Act dollars. And for almost 7 months, no one knew where that money had gone. Public health was told they could ask for, count them, 2 million of the $300 million that came in for COVID. It turns out, thanks to Dr. Kasiri, our public health officer for the county, Black woman who was fighting behind the scenes, and she finally said on the record, I was told I could only ask for $2 million, where the other $298 million had gone to the sheriffs. And so, I'm sitting here, I'm an epidemiologist. I didn't really do an intro. I work in public health. I was like, I know we don't know enough about COVID in the beginning time about how it was spread, but I can tell you can't arrest it and you can't shoot it.
Well,
so what is the sheriff going to do about COVID, right? Why do they have COVID?
We listen. Nobody had ever put it that way.
You can't arrest it, you can't shoot it. So what are we going to do here? It can't sit. I mean, like, you can't literally put it in the jail. Why do you have this money and public health doesn't? But the consequence of that, and this is why it matters to me, Because if you know, you don't care what I know until you know that I care.
Right.
When I was 11, my dad passed away from heart disease. He was only 47. And he had a lifelong of smoking. He was born in 1947. He actually would have turned 79 last Friday, May 15th, if he were still alive. And, he started smoking at a time when there was no Surgeon General's warning, where the tobacco industry was lying to everyone, where doctors were making, physicians were making like videos saying, oh my gosh, these things are so good for you and they're great for your health and everything. And so my dad started smoking at 14 or 15. And it was not knowing that it was bad for him, not knowing it caused cancer and heart disease and all these other things. And he died of heart disease as a result of his lifelong smoking. And so for me, I think about the role of policy to protect us, because I was born in 1982. And so my whole life, I've known that smoking is bad for me. In fact, in 5th grade, I signed a pledge with, Rudy Huxtable saying I would never smoke in my life, right? Like that was, Cosby Show was on, we were all excited, right? And she, Keisha Knight Poems, shout out, she went to Spelman, so did I. She was a senior in my freshman year. And she had this pledge at the time for kids to commit to never smoking in their lives. My dad didn't get that. And the reason I bring that up in the context of COVID is because people got sick and died because we didn't have testing centers set up, because we weren't able to respond and let people know, because we weren't able to do the outreach we could have done if public health had those $300 million before October of 2020. And so I don't take that lightly, because my dad's not here celebrating decades of life he deserved because there were policies that didn't exist and people in government who didn't do the things they needed to protect him from a predatory industry and bad messaging. And so when I think about the responsibility of the county, that's what I think about. I think about the fact that we are responsible for some of the things, not all of the things, but some of the things that matter most to humans. And I think two things matter most to us: the number of years in our life and the quality of life in our years. And that quality of life is everything from, are we loved? Do we have family? Do we have support? Do we have, do we have spirituality? All of those things. And the number of years in our life is how long do we get to enjoy those things?
Yeah.
And so that's a deep responsibility to me, and to watch the county just not do right by that for months. And then the consequence being that they fired the county executive, but there was no blowback for the 5 people who sat on that board, whose primary job it was to make sure that any money that comes into the county is spent well. That has to stop. That can't continue.
Thank you, Dr. Flo. I really think you're putting this in very simple, digestible terms so that we can understand. And that's the problem sometimes in our community, is politics and policies don't translate well. And so to understand the monumental amount of money that the county received during COVID, and to understand that the county would still be focused on incarceration instead of prevention, instead of resources, instead of access, lets us also internalize who they really care about and how they really care about our communities. And so it's important that we understand that. I just want to thank you for the work. We have the privilege to know you, as an authentic community worker, somebody who cares deeply about folks' health, mental health, emotional health, physical well-being. I remember during the Stephon Clark uprisings and the things that we did together in the community to like really name what was happening, but also you gave us terms for PTSD. You gave us terms for depression and anxiety and the things that we were feeling that we couldn't put a name on. You also gave us terms as an epidemiologist and understanding that racism is a public health issue, and the ways that we contextualize, institutionalize racism in the ways that it manifests in our bodies. So I say all that to say, it has been very disheartening watching the way the Sacramento media has portrayed you in this race. And the lawsuits that have happened around.
You didn't even let me get to it.
I'm sorry.
But you good. Yeah.
How does that feel? There was a lawsuit to get Doctor off of the ballot for your and you worked for that. And so how does it feel? I feel like some of these are attacks because you are a Black woman and because you are a threat to the system.
Yeah.
And you are very well suited to be in this position. If you were not a threat to the establishment, I do not think that folks will be fighting this hard to discredit you.
Right.
So how does it feel to navigate those situations around those pieces?
You know, I feel a combination, a complex array of emotions, right? Some days it feels like run for office, they said, right? Like you could do it, right? And I'm like, man. But I also, you know, as I said before, like I went into this clear-minded. I think part of the reason why I've had this pit at the bottom of my stomach for so many months is because I knew that they were going to come after me this time because, you know, we ran the closest race in city history in the mayor's race, you know, a year and a half ago, and they weren't expecting that. They were like, there's no way that this person who's come out and, you know, been so unapologetic about not taking corporate money and standing with people in our community, et cetera, is going to get out of the primary. So they ignored me in the primary. And then they were like, well, that was a fluke because, you know, there were 3 kind of establishment candidates in there. And so there's no way that she can win this general election. And then they polled on it. And we were actually up by 15 points in September. Right. And so then that's when they decided to send out all these mailers calling me a terrorist and do all of these things to try to stop. So I know what's coming. And so because we held them to the closest race in city history, 49.5% to 50.5%. And we did that without taking, you know, any law enforcement money, any fossil fuel money, any big, you know, business money. That came from people showed up. The janitor at the Crocker Art Museum gave me $25. You know, like people opened up their pockets. People opened up their homes. We had 100 house parties where you and all your friends would bring people in, and they would say, "Hey, let's get some money in here. You're gonna sign up to door knock. You're gonna do some phone banking. Tell your friends." Like it's a grassroots effort, and so they know we built this apparatus now that wants something different, and so it's scary to them. So they are lining up, and the question that has been asked, and someone who was in one of the rooms behind closed doors said to me, someone was like, well, if she's not beholden to us, who is she beholden to? And I'm like, well, that's an interesting question because I'm here because we're supposed to be serving our communities and doing right and protecting the environment, all of those things. And you're a part of this community. So why wouldn't that be good for you? But for whatever reason, it's not. So what it feels like is, it feels as if there is a design for us not to be like, systems are perfectly designed to get the outcomes they do. And so the poverty we experience, the lack of equity that we're experiencing, the frustrations we're experiencing, they're not a design flaw, they're a design feature. That's the way this is supposed to go. Sure. And so everybody is just clamoring to not be the person who has to play the role of the oppressed. But it's not because oppression is not one of the things that we have, and I don't say we as in us, but like that this system has resigned itself to. And I think the saddest part to me about it is the fact that, like, I believe it so much I tattooed on my arm "more is possible." Because I believe more, like that wasn't just a campaign slogan for me. I believe that we can do better than this. And it's so sad to meet people who were like, yeah, I agree, we should have universal single payer healthcare. And I agree that we should have way fewer people in our jails if we have jails at all. And I agree, you know, that violence in our community is a problem, but we can't do anything about that. So I'm gonna stick with what we got. I'm gonna try to do the best, you know, like, and that's what's frustrating to me, is recognizing that all of this is made up, y'all. Every single bit of it. Every law we have is less than 250 years old. It was made up by some people who are no more smart or thoughtful or kind or caring than all of us, you know, on this podcast today. And yet people act like it can't be changed.
Right.
And so that's how it feels to be attacked. It just feels like, gosh, you're just so minded that you can't find anything better to do than to do this and to fight against some good progress that could be good for all of us. You don't even want to try.
Right.
Man, how you doing, Dr. Flo?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. It's good to see your face today, Queen. As always, I always love seeing you in the field and seeing what you're doing out there, as well as all of you guys here as well. As I listen to you talking and I listen to the many candidates that come in here, for myself, I'm starting to have a better understanding of what politics do for human rights. as I start to understand it, I'm starting to believe that politics is something that we are supposed to use to better our human rights in our human situations that we are going through as a community. My question would be, what is the difference between being politically strategic and human rights?
I think they are two parts of the same piece, which is we need to be strategic about protecting our human rights.
Mm-hmm.
Like we need to be thinking about how do we, I mean, and and to Patrice's early point, right? Like people see politics as something that is confusing and doesn't have a real impact on their lives. And I think some of that is also by design. We use big words. We don't try to break things down into digestible, chunks so that people can engage it. And people are living their lives. If you're not doing this for a living, it's very complicated and it seems like abstract, and you're just hoping somebody's going to do the right thing and handle that. And so I think we need to be strategic about the community organizing part of this, which is how do we talk to people in the community about why this is important, and how do we provide an on-ramp for them to come in and help us to do the work needed, because our human rights are real and they are under attack. I mean, just this past Tuesday, our county board of supervisors voted to allow the sheriffs to work with ICE, and it hasn't shown up on any news media yet.
Oh,
because nobody's coming to the meetings yet, sis. What?
It hasn't shown up on any news media to the point where I finally this weekend I started texting ABC and Fox and KCRA and the B and Cap Radio and the Bridge, and I was like, the county voted to let the sheriffs work with ICE on Tuesday. Is anybody going to cover this story? Wow. And because I'm also trying to I got to run an election. We got 15 days left, so I'm trying to do both things. But I'm putting out my video now because I'm like, I didn't think I also had to be the news media, right? But what's in there, y'all, is scary, because not if ICE shows up here and shoots someone in their memorandum of understanding, it says that that we can't look into and investigate that the body that is here can investigate themselves.
Wow.
Wait, what's that mean?
Wow.
Wait, what does that mean?
There's no accountability.
Can you hear the question? Because I might have spoken incorrectly. This is what I thought I heard. The body here can investigate itself.
Yes, so basically what it means is that
what's the body? The body as in the body on the ground? I got confused.
So yeah, you're right. I use the word body is a little confusing in that sentence. So what they did on Tuesday was they agreed to be a part of, when Donald Trump became president again in 2025, he put out this executive order that wants to go after human trafficking and cartels and drug smuggling and all of these things. Okay. And under the guise of that, they have created these teams that are supposed to be a combination of federal law enforcement and local law enforcement. And so the memorandum, they're supposed to work together. And so they came out with an agreement, a contract that was passed on Tuesday. And in that contract, it says that the FBI and ICE and the Drug Enforcement Agency are the chief, they're the heads of the operations of this. And that they're going to be working with our local sheriff's department, some of our state departments, et cetera, on these regional teams. And that if in the course of them doing their work, there's a shooting or something else, I can actually give you the language, because I was trying to explain this to a couple of reporters earlier today. But in the course, if something goes wrong, then what happens is, if ICE shoots someone in Sacramento, our sheriff's outreach committee can't investigate that. And our state can't investigate that. ICE gets to, the Department of Homeland Security and ICE get to investigate themselves.
That's just free range to keep.
Wow.
Yeah, so if there's a shooting, the agency whose officer was involved will designate the agency that will conduct the investigations. And all complaints, allegations, and misconduct breaches will be investigated by the parent agency, but that's flexible and not binding.
Wow. Flexible.
Yes, it says that in the memorandum of understanding.
Wow.
Right.
Good gracious.
So there's the Freedom of Information Act requests, which make it so that the media or more members of the public can reach out and say, what's going on? We want documents and we want to see what's happening because you're our government and you work for us and we deserve that. Well, those have to go to the investigative agency and the U.S. Attorney General before they'll be disclosed.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
And that investigation agency.
And all of that is in the memorandum of understanding for this item that was number 37. But what's wildest about this, y'all, is that this item
consent, was it?
was on consent.
Oh, don't say that.
So consent is
there wasn't even no discussion about it.
Controversial, and so they don't even talk. Luckily, it got pulled off of consent. There was a little bit of conversation about it, and then it was still approved.
So that basically means ICE has a badge now.
It basically means that ICE has access. And the interesting thing is they're saying, well, this is not about deportations because ICE has two arms, right? There's the ERO arm, which is where they're doing the civilian deportations and stuff. And then there's this investigative arm. And they're saying, no, this isn't the ERO, this is the investigative arm. And we're saying, and I'm like, but they're in the same agency and they have information sharing capabilities. So basically by doing this, you have given them access to people and access to lists and access to information to be able to use the other side. We're not stupid.
So, Dr. Flo, with all the knowledge and everything you just gave us and all the things that you know that you're up against, right? When you come in, how do you plan on making change with all these targets against you? Can you speak a little bit about your plan of action? What are 3 things you got planned? You know, you're the people's champ, but when you come in, how do you plan to navigate the bureaucracy of this system and still implement change?
I plan to do it with all of you. Because what I know is that they are doing some of this because they have not gotten any smoke, right? So, I mean, that's just the truth, right? Like, you know, people act differently when people are on them about it and are actually able to push back. And so my plan is to use the community as the voice. We have people who live in every single district of this county, not just the District 1 that I'm running for. We know folks who live in North Highlands. We know folks who live in Antelope. We know folks who live in Folsom. We know folks who live in Elk Grove. We need to, and so my plan is to engage the people and say, look, this is what's coming. We need to show up. I need y'all to show up so that, and I need y'all to reach out to the other members and talk to them about what you care about, because that's how we change this. That's how we turn some of these votes over. I also have a plan to work with every single person on the board on something. And so I've kind of already picked my project because there's a law in California known as the Brown Act. And what it means is that you can't have like a voting majority of any like body. So city council or county supervisors or any of the local bodies. You can't meet in secret because the public has a right to know what you're talking about, and you shouldn't be able to make decisions behind closed doors. So what that means is that if there's anything we're going to be voting on, because there's only 5 members on the board, I can only talk to one other person because 3 people is a majority vote, right?
Right.
So what I've decided is I want to work on a project with each person. So I have something that we're working on together, but I'm also getting to know them a little bit better. And so we have 2 Republicans on the board. We have 1 independent, and then there's 1 other Democrat on the board. He's also has a challenger. So we'll see who wins that race as well for District 2. But I plan to work with the other 3. Either one of them doesn't have a challenger, and the other 2 aren't up for election until for another 2 years. So I plan to work with each of them on something. There is an idea that I really want to work on, which is a public bank. And a lot of people don't know what a public bank is, so I'll just explain really briefly. Right now, that $10 billion budget that we have every year, we bank it in a private bank. And that private bank, we pay them interest and we pay them fees every year. And those private banks are often invested in fossil fuels, in private prisons, in a bunch of stuff that I don't think most Sacramentans want their tax money going to. We only have 1 public bank in the whole country. It's in a very surprising place. It's in North Dakota. And it's been around for over 100 years. But what happens when you have a public bank is that instead of those dollars going to the private entity, they stay with you. So you have more money without having to raise anybody's taxes. I don't have to have my hand out saying, come on, give me some more money. We need some things. And so in the county of Sacramento, that could be anywhere from $150 million to $300 million a year that we don't spend in interest and fees that we can reinvest at home. So the reason why I'm excited about that is because the only place that has one in the country is North Dakota, which is notoriously a red state. And so I want to work on that with one of the Republicans, because he gets to go to all his Republican supporters and say, I'm bringing red state values to California. And we all get to say, oh my gosh, y'all, we get a public bank, right? Great bipartisan thing to do, because North Dakota's been doing it since the late 1800s. And they have a lot of data on how every time we've had a recession, they do better because they have more money to be able to help restart the economy, be able to help people out, because they didn't spend that $300 million paying some private shareholders and getting them rich and not spending it locally on stuff. So that money can be spent on affordable housing. That money can be spent to make sure that we expand healthcare until we get hopefully universal single payer healthcare, which is something I really champion. That money can be spent on to help our arts community, or to be able to fix some of our roads, or just to do some of the things that are needed here. So that's what I'm excited about, is what can we do with 150 to 300 million extra dollars a year? And I'm doing the same thing with all the other members, right? Just going through and saying, can I work with Rosario, another Republican, on how do we restructure some of the staffing at the county? So we got 12,000 employees, but we set this staffing structure up after World War II. Maybe the world has changed since 1946, and maybe we need to think about how, how what these jobs are without firing anybody. We have plenty of work to do, but maybe we don't need, 700 office techs. Maybe we need some outreach workers to help us with homelessness, and we'll train you to do that so you can do that work. So there are some things we can do there. I want to really think about how we change, public safety. And we do have someone on the board who spent 24 years on CHP. And one of the things he did say to me was, I think that we have too much militarization of our law enforcement. And I'm like, I'm gonna let the older white dude who used to be law enforcement say that, and I just stand there and say, yeah, I agree with what he said, right? So I think there are some options about how we can get some things done and how I can build those relationships. But also I need the community members to know what's going on. And so I'm going to be very vocal and very present in community in ways that our other county supervisors haven't, because I don't have somebody writing me big checks. I need y'all to execute the agenda. And so that's why I'm running like this, in this people-powered way. It's not a gimmick. It's not a strategy. We're activating folks to work, to vote, so we can activate folks to govern together. I need y'all. I can't do this without you.
And this is what makes you dangerous. You have ideas. You have a plan of action. You have people support, and that's what makes you dangerous. If you're just joining us, you are listening to Black versus the Board of Supervisors. I'm sorry, Black versus the Board of Education. And we are talking to Dr. Flo, the history on the ballot, but are we ready? I see that there are folks watching. If you have comments or questions, please feel free to put them in the chat so that Dr. Flo can answer them. And yes, on here, we do put some respect on her name. It is Dr. Flo. So, Melissa, it's on you.
Okay, I have two questions, but I'm gonna stick to one right now. You just mentioned safety. So what does safety look like beyond policing, and how do you see it being reformed?
So when I think about a safe community, I think about a community where people's needs have been met, because so many of our safety concerns can't be dealt with after the fact. I say to people all the time that none of us woke up this morning hoping to call 911, right? If we do call 911 in a day, it means that either we have a medical emergency or something has gone terribly wrong. But either way, it's not on our list of it's not like when we plan for Saturday brunch and we're like, great, I'm gonna go have brunch with my friends and then we're gonna hang out at the park, and then I'm gonna call 911. Nobody does that. That's not how you plan your day, right? And so to me, I think about, what does prevention look like? What does it look like for us to prevent as many of the reasons we have to call 911 in the first place, and then make sure that when we do, the right person shows up, right? That when somebody's having a mental health crisis, we don't send somebody with a gun out to arrest them. We send somebody who's trained in de-escalation and trained in mental health to provide that help. So for me, safety is when we have, schools that work, when we have affordable housing, when we have good public transportation, when we have clean air and clean water, when people have good, well-paying jobs, when people can afford their health care and know that they're one day going to be able to retire and not have to work themselves into the grave. Like all of those things are related to safety. When we have the ability to be able to support people when they've experienced traumas so that they don't become complex traumas and haunt them for the rest of their lives. When we're able to give families, green space and parks and ways to be able to love on one another and support one another and be together. When we have time to rest, like all of those things lead us to be less stressed, lead us to be healthier and happier and more communal. When we have gathering spaces in our communities, when we have art and music and ways to be able to tend to our spirituality, because we as humans are not just flesh and bone. We are where the spirit meets the bone, right? And so we need those things. We need love, right? It's something that you never hear people talk about in government. But when I read over these policies, I think about, is this helping us love each other more? Is this helping us love our families more? Is this helping us love our friends more? If it's not, why are we doing it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chastain.
Okay, you have been putting some real stuff out here, and I truly appreciate the numbers. That was astronomical for me. So when you are in power, how do you check your power?
Great question. I think one of the ways is to stay really rooted in community. So I've made a few commitments to myself, one of which is that after being elected, because I'm trying to speak it into existence, I will no longer accept awards. I'm more than happy to show up to present an award to somebody else. But I think it's really important that we don't just reward power and make it this sort of closed cycle. So that's something that I'm like, I've gotten enough trophies in my life. I think it's time that we really reward people who are doing work in community and recognizing that difference. I have close, small, intermediate, and larger circles of people. I trust that everybody on this podcast here, I trust you to feel comfortable to come to me and say, Flo, what is going on, right? Because I don't want to lose sight of why I'm doing things. That's why I've done things a little bit harder, right? I haven't taken checks from, big business, from, big tobacco, from fossil fuels, from the developers, from real estates, from apartments, from the sheriff's department, so that I don't have anybody who can come to me and say, I wrote you a check, I expect this, right? So I don't get comfortable in the space. Like running a people-powered campaign is as much about honoring my values as it is also a check on the things that happen to politicians, which is they get in a place where they start to feel like getting elected is more important than doing right. So I think losing the mayor's race reminded me that I know how to lose, that there is a politics of losing, and that I'm not here because I need a job. I could get a different job. I'm here because I want to serve, and I only should be serving if I can remember that. And so those are some of the things that I built into how I did this, and that I say out loud on the record so that people can remind me and I can remind myself, because I don't think that I am smarter or more immune to the things that power kind of like shifts and pulls people in those directions. And I think surrounding myself and trying to put up some guardrails for myself are very important. So I'm so glad you asked that question.
Thank you.
And I really do mean that. Like I part of the being in the community is I want people to be able to snatch me up and be like, well, what?
Not literally. Don't go put your hands on her, sis. Not literally. Just come talk to her. Don't put your hands on her. Yes.
Yeah, like that doesn't sound like you. What's up? Like that is important. Like I believe that's friendship. Friendship and community is not just you being like, hey, we got your back, sis. It's also like, hey, sis, I don't know about this.
Right. And I think that's vulnerable, and that's a tenet of leadership that our community needs, that somebody is accessible in that type of way and is willing to take, critical feedback and be open for, conversations that are rooted in, hey sis, what's really going on, right? The mayor's race was so close for you. It was so close. it was one of those things like, did you vote? Like making like we wanted to understand like what was the lack, like where were those votes at, but also how do you let me pivot the question, because I think I wanted to say you were still a graceful loser, if that makes sense. You really showed us how to lose and still hold your head up high and still stand in your truth and still be dedicated to your community. And some of us have been in situations where we lost, and it could break you, right? You showed us how to still walk in your power and not let losing an election change the trajectory of the platform that you're running on around people and community, and staying true to who you are and not taking money from big corporate, right? With all that being said, what's one uncomfortable truth about Sacramento County that no one wants to say out loud? Because I think that's one of the things that really help you help the people trust your platform, is like you say the things that we don't know, and you say the things out loud that we might not be thinking about.
Yeah. I think the uncomfortable truth about Sacramento as a region is that a lot of people lack political courage.
Mm.
And so it's not so much that people don't know the right thing to do. It's that they don't want to pay the consequence of doing the right thing, right? And so it's so interesting, that you said, losing with grace, because I feel that as much as I am I am an inspiration and what we did together, because it was not me. I told you all the time, we are running for mayor and we are running for supervisor. So like we did this together, but because I was the face of it, it was like, oh, that's so inspiring. But also I'm a cautionary tale, right? For all the people who are afraid of going corporate free themselves, of divesting from law enforcement money and divesting from the realtors' money and divesting from, I lost, right? And so so I think to a lot of establishment politicians, it's like, yes, she did really well and it was her first time. And so, we're proud, but like she lost, like, I don't want to lose. Right. And so I think a lot of it really comes down to courage. When I have conversations with people, they know the right thing to do. They know what's messed up. And it also sometimes feels a little bit like I am their clergy, right? Their faith leader, because people come to me and confess things because they know what I believe. And so they'll come to me and say, the city and the county are really broken and we don't work together. And then we'll turn around and stand up in front of the Stockton Boulevard Partnership and say, if anybody says the city and the county aren't working together and aren't collaborating, they are a liar who's not paying attention. And I'm like, we just had a 2-hour conversation about the fact that half of this room has been fighting you on the things you were trying to do. And now you up here acting like that never happened. Like it's really, but it's a courage thing. It's the ability to be able to say, I'd like to be elected, but I'm not going to take law enforcement money, and here's how. Right. And here's why. And to be able to pay the consequence of that. And I just, I hope it's not coming from a privileged place, but I just really feel like some stuff's not worth winning. Like I'd rather lose honoring my values than win by doing something I don't believe in and that I think is actively harmful. But I also like, the reason why I say privilege in that is because for the last year and a half, I have thought about the people who matter to me, who I could have done better by had I been in that seat. So on one hand, I always say, I sleep well at night knowing I honored my values, but then I think about the folks who were at Camp Resolution who got, broken up. And I think about the fact that our mayor introduced a policy to ban people from sleeping at City Hall from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. when they have nowhere else to go. And I'm like, I hope it doesn't sound privileged that I said I was willing to stand on business, because I would have never introduced that policy and forced the other council members to even have to make a decision on it, which of course they made a decision and many of them voted for it. But shout out to my thing for not. There also are ways where then going back to your power question, I see how people wrestle with the power, because I'm like, man, it would have been nice to be able to protect our unhoused community from that vote. And I couldn't do that because I lost, right? So, and I think some people, that's the calculus in their mind, is that me being elected is better, like it's better than me not being elected. And I only believe that if I'm willing to do the right things. And so that's why I'm trying to run this way, and that's why I'm trying to govern this way, but it's hard.
I like the way that you run it and you govern, and I also like the fact that how you always keep the community partners involved in what you're doing. When you run in a race like this, and yeah, you lost it politically, but did you win it? Did you lose it in the hearts of the people? I need to know that the person that I'm backing is tough enough to go up in there and lose. That's what the underdog is about. When I see your loss, I don't see your loss. I see it as a win, because guess what? The opponent now knows you ain't so tough. And I don't need no police to come up in here. I don't need this backing to come up here. And us as your community team, yeah, the homeless, they didn't have no place to sleep from 9 to 6. BYLP says some of the other organizations, we went out and fed them from 9 to 6. Man, since they ain't got nowhere to sleep and they can't go, that's what the rest of the community comes in and does. So when I heard you talking, you was answering questions before I even got a chance to ask them. My question was going to look like this. I'm a person that gets up and I got to fight every day, knowing that I might go up in there and lose, but I know that my opponent needs to know, I don't care that I lost today. I'm coming back tomorrow. I'm at the next IEP and the next IEP, and you can email me, and if you can call her, and you can call her, and we're going to be a problem. You won't win next time. I'm going to fight for 30 more years. I have the energy. My question to you was going to look like this. I heard you saying what it has to look like when you're getting back up. I want you to detail out a little bit more. When you take an L like that and in the community and you're feeling like you are, man, I wish I could have done better for this person, but I didn't compromise either. I didn't do anything to compromise to make it harmful for later. What does your gear back up look like for you? What are you telling yourself? And I lost, but I wish I could have done better, like you said. And I'm holding that, and I'm holding myself responsible to that. So as I'm gearing back up for this next race, which I see you doing and fighting yours, what are you telling yourself, pushing through and knowing that you want to do better for the people?
Yeah, what I'm telling myself now is, I do think that was a setup for a position that actually has more power and more influence, because it's a 6 times bigger budget. Because last year when the big bill passed at the federal level, it's making it so that 1/3 of people who are on Medi-Cal in the county might lose their Medi-Cal because of the changes in eligibility criteria. I'm thinking about the fact that there are 80,000 people who might lose their food assistance. I'm thinking about the fact that our county doesn't run any hospitals. And so if people lose their health care, we have to then spend some money to be able to build what's known as indigent care, which basically is we are legally responsible to provide you with something. We can't leave you with nothing. And so we have to build that back up. And so when I'm thinking about, what is different this time, or what I need to do differently this time, part of it is, for people who were not directly in my community outreach, I was introducing myself, and people were getting to know me as voters. And now I have that name identification. It's, oh yeah, I remember Dr. Flo from that last race. I remember what happened. I was paying attention. Oh, I'm seeing her again coming and talking. So it's the familiarity of it this time has been different. So when we've been out knocking doors, it's like, yeah, I voted for you for mayor, or yeah, I didn't vote for you for mayor because I knew this and this, but you got my vote this time. I think, I think this is where I want to see. So what I'm learning from it is that sometimes you have to start with a vision and you have to build something over time, and it doesn't always work the first time, right? I think about, I draw a lot of inspiration from our ancestors, right? Who had to persevere, some of whom were born in bondage and died in bondage, right? But had to keep believing that something was going to be on the other side, right? You do it without the knowing. If you're sitting in 1852, you don't know that 1861 is coming and there's going to be a civil war, right? And you're watching slave states and free states be battled, and you're like, is this the best we're going to get? Is a few of these have and a few of these don't have? So I think about the challenges that we're up against, and I think about how it takes time to build to those. That we talk about the end of the civil rights movement because we sort of know how that went, right? But we don't talk about, the people who were fighting in the 40s and the 50s, and it took 25 years to even get that Voting Rights Act that was just recently gutted, right? We don't talk about the fact that, so much of what happened during Reconstruction was undone during Jim Crow, right? We had more Black elected officials in Reconstruction than we do, now, right? So I mean, there's progress that comes, and then erosions, and then more progress that comes, and then erosions. And we are certainly in a time of erosions, but it doesn't mean that people during those eroded times in the past didn't keep fighting and didn't have to keep pushing on and didn't experience losses, but weren't able to give up. And so that's what draws inspiration to me, is like, if without those odds, without some of the tools we have right now to get our message out and to organize and to do things, people were still able to hold on. I think I can too.
Nice.
So you talked a little bit about the 1% that didn't show up during the mayor's race. You talked about some of the challenges. So I wanted to ask, what would you say to those that may be a little bit scared because the current attack on the civil rights, the current attack on their votes, are just a little bit ignorant to the voting system? What would you say to those voters to get out and get up and vote? What is your campaign to get the hood out there and get up and vote?
I would start by saying that, there's a reason why, like, people don't lock up the dump. They only lock up the safes, right? Because there's valuable things in a safe, and that's why you lock it up. So if people are trying to stop you from voting, that means there's important things that happen when you do, right? And I'm just very straight up with people about that. Like, voting is not a panacea. It will not fix everything. But it is certainly important enough that people are bending themselves over backwards and into pretzels to try to stop you from doing it. And that should at least give you some consideration for maybe this isn't some fly-by-night thing. But the other thing that I try to impress upon people is, and I'm very honest about this, you live in California, you live anywhere really in the United States, your one vote is not going to decide the presidency. We have an electoral college, it's bigger than you. And if that's all you think voting is, I can totally understand why you're like, why am I even bothering? But that's not all voting is. And so when I usually talk to people, I say your local elections matter so much. We have a city council race that was decided in 2024 by 116 votes. And usually when I say that, people are shocked, and I say, you probably had more people at your birthday party or graduation or family reunion than that vote, than that was decided by, right? We had a county supervisor's race in 2022 that was decided by 328 votes. So a lot of people have more followers on social media than that, right? So what I try to remind people is that part of you feeling like your vote doesn't matter is because you're only thinking about the presidency, and that comes around every 4 years. But your vote absolutely matters in a lot of these other races, and you can be the deciding factor on whether or not somebody gets in or doesn't get in. You can be the deciding factor on whether or not that policy gets passed or doesn't get passed. But then the other thing I like to tell people and remind people, especially in our community, because we know what the criminal justice system has done to us. And there was a brother who I met at Southside Park. He walked up to me. He was like, "What's your movement, sis?" And I was like, "I already know where this conversation is going." So we start talking. We're having a great conversation. And he's like, "I want one of your lawn signs. I want to, go over. I live in CV Circle. I want to talk to people about the election." I'm like, "Please do. We've been trying to be out and have conversations." And then I always ask this question to everybody. I don't mean any offense when I do. I say, "Are you registered to vote?" And he says, "No, I had some trouble. I had a felony, And I said, "Are you actively serving time for that sentence right now?" Well, I'm looking him in the eye, and he goes, "No, I wasn't." And I was like, "You were eligible to vote." And he said, "I didn't know that."
You didn't even know.
A lot of people have taken themselves out of the process because they assume because they had trouble at some point in their lives that they can't vote. So I always make sure to ask people, "Are you registered?" And if not, I get a little in your business and say, "Why not?" And a couple times I've run into some people who are like, "Hey, I'm undocumented, so I can't," or "I'm green card, I'm not eligible." Or "I'm 17. Listen, I don't know how old you somewhere,
Telling the truth, I didn't know until 2 months ago that I could vote.
Right. But it's real that there's a lot of people who can vote who are not even registered because they didn't know. And then there's the other part of it, which is that it can be a little intimidating to think out what's on your ballot. And so I usually will point them towards some of the voter guides and some of the things like, here, what are your values? What do you care about? Well, here's some organizations who have already done the work for you so that if you don't have time, if you trust them, here's who they're recommending and why. If you like that, cool. You don't have to go with all their recommendations, but at least it makes it a little bit easier for you so you don't have to start from scratch.
And so just to be clear, Just to be clear, people that are in District 1 should be voting for you, or will see your name on the ballot.
Yes.
And that is
Last
what
name
area?
above the fold.
Okay. And that's the North Sacramento and Natomas area. Just to be clear, right? Because some people don't even know what district they're in Sacramento.
You don't actually have to know what district you're in, because if you're registered to vote, your ballot will come and everybody who's on it, who you can vote for. So it's nice to know when you're out and about, but if you don't know, it's okay. Your ballot will come with the right people on it based on your address.
So fill it out.
District
put it in the
1
mailbox.
is basically everything north of Fruit Ridge. So this is Oak Park, Talek Village, Tahoe Park, downtown, midtown, East Sacramento, a little bit of Upper Land Park because it kind of cuts down Freeport and then cuts over. So it's Upper Land Park. The rest of like the southern part is in District 2. It does on the eastern side of the district. Once you go down Fruit Ridge, it turns right on Power Inn and goes south to Florin. So the folks on the eastern side of Florin can also vote. It goes up by Arden, goes up through Del Paso, goes up to North Sacramento, borders on North Highlands. North Highlands kind of is an interesting community because depending on where you are there, you're either in District 1, 3, or 4.
Okay.
So it's right on the cusp of 3 different districts.
Yeah.
But then it's South and North Natomas all the way up to the airport. So if you live in any of those areas, like I said, Oak Park, all of that, Colonial Heights, you can vote in this race.
Come on, get out there and vote, y'all.
So before I let you go, because we'd have run out of time, but I have to have you address this. Your latest challenge came with them filing a lawsuit regarding income disclosures. And then you responded by filing a FPPC complaint.
No, they filed an FPPC complaint, and I filed a complaint with the state bar against the attorney.
That's right. Correct me. And so you're fighting back. You're not allowing them to just rake you over the coals. So can you kind of tell us exactly what that was in terms of, because people will ask, well, what about her income? What was she supposed to disclose? What is A, B, C, and D? So can you break it down for the folks who maybe heard that and are on the fence now and like, oh my gosh, she wasn't honest about something, blah, blah, blah. Can you break that down so that folks have a clearer picture of what it is what games they're playing right now?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll just tell you the whole story and I'll make it as quick as possible. We have, because of a Supreme Court ruling, we have something known as Citizens United, and that allows for independent expenditures to be able to spend as much money on an election as they want to. I bring that up because campaigns like my race, the maximum anybody can give directly to me is $1,600, but they can raise an unlimited amount of money. And so several of my opponents, well, one of my opponents has a bunch of independent expenditures, so which is known as dark money in politics. I bring that up because someone who lives in District 1 decided twice they were going to file against me. The first one was saying I should not be able to use doctor on the ballot because I am a PhD, not an MD, and voters are too stupid to know the difference, even though we celebrate Dr. King Day every year, and I've never heard anybody ask me what kind of position is he. Apparently, y'all are too stupid to know the difference between a PhD and an MD, and therefore it's fraudulent for me to describe myself as something I actually am. So they filed that. And so they actually didn't sue me. They were suing the county because the county is the one that makes decisions on what your ballot designation can be. I was just the real party of interest because it's my ballot designation. So I filed a declaration, which was to be able to talk about my profession. What are the activities I've done over the last 12 months that justify me being able to use this? And I basically said, look, I've been consulting mostly over the last 12 months with public health agencies and other, folks around the country. And so here are the places where I have spoken, where I've been invited to train, where I've done things that specifically because of my expertise, including my degree. And so that's why I have this ballot designation. And so then they took my declaration of what I've done and then said, well, you didn't file these on your conflict of interest disclosure. Conflict of interests are not every single dollar you've ever made. There are specific criteria that it has to be over a certain amount of money, or it has to be money that's come from certain sources. One of the particular ones is it has to be money that has come from an entity that is doing business in the city of Sacramento or in the county of Sacramento or with the county specifically. If I go to Oklahoma and give a training on maternal health, they're not doing business in or with Sacramento. So
Right.
yes, I do have income, but it's not that, right?
Mm.
If you have government income, for example, as a salary member, you don't have to report that because it's public information anyway. If you are reimbursed for travel expenses from the government, you don't have to report. So like there are all of these things that fall under that. Or I'm technically being compensated if somebody comes to me and says, hey, we want to offer you an honorarium to speak. And I say, oh, thank you so much. I'm actually on the board of Girl Scouts. Could you make the check out to them and donate it to them on my behalf? I didn't accept any money, but you did offer me compensation for my services. So when I write down, these are all my professional activities, I'm going to list that out.
Right.
Well, this attorney, because he's not really, again, the attorney and the filer are not really trying to do something above board. They're just trying to come up with ways to make you not trust me. So they took my declaration and said, here's some things she was paid for, but her Form 700 says she has no conflict of interest. Because I don't have any conflicts of interest. These are not things that you have to worry about because they're not a conflict of interest. The form does not say, did you make money last year, yes or no? It says, do you have conflicts of interest? It also says, do you have property? And you don't have to report if it's your primary residence because you're trying to figure out if you have rental property or if you're invested in something, et cetera. So that's what they're trying to do was by filing the FPPC complaint, but they overplayed their hand because they didn't read. And see, it used to be illegal for my ancestors to be taught to read, so I take it very seriously, and I do read. And so he didn't read the declaration, and so he went through and said a bunch of things that I never said I was paid for. I just listed as professional activities were. He went through and misquoted the what came out of the court case about my ballot designation. And there also is a rule for attorneys where you're not allowed to just file spurious things to try to injure someone's reputation. You actually have to have good faith behind it. Right. So we filed a complaint with the bar that said, you are not, rule 4.1 says you are not allowed to make false statements to a third party on behalf of a client. And that's exactly what he did. And we just listed out all the examples from the document of false statements that were made. So we filed that. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be in a place where I'm filing bar complaints against attorneys, but I'm also not going to allow you to just do silly things to me that are, that come from a bad place, that are disingenuous, just and take it lying down. Like, you don't get to do that. It's against your professional ethics. And so we're going to fight back.
Come on.
I love that. And please keep that energy. Yes. Because I think for far too long, people have gotten away with silliness just because people just didn't want to go back and forth with anybody, or they just accepted what it was and say, you know what, I'm just going to be quiet because, a lie can't keep spreading if you don't say anything to it. You know, and the fact
if
that
you're explaining, you're losing. And I'm like, that's silly.
Yeah. And the fact that you took the time to, we're not going to take this lying down. I respect that. And you will always be Dr. Flo to us. And Flo. We're with it. But we have run out of time. We are about 7 minutes over. But do you have any last things that you want to say to anybody listening? We already know they're supposed to vote for you in District 1, June 2nd. But anything else that you want to say?
I guess my last thing will be my website is Flo for SAC, all spelled out, FLOFORSAC.com. Please go visit. If you want a lawn sign, we have about maybe 60 or 70 left. We're trying to get rid of them this week. So sign up if you want one. If you want to help us out, we are a people-powered campaign. If you want to help us door knock, if you want to help us phone bank, we'll give you scripts, we'll train you, we'll make sure you're supported. Anything you can do to be able to reach out to your family and friends, remind them to vote. It's easy to forget a June primary. School's getting out. The summer is starting, like things are happening. So just remind people to check their mailboxes. They should have already gotten their ballot. If they have not registered, you can register and vote same day in California. So there's no voter registration deadline. You just have to go to one of the vote centers. You can register on site. They will give you your ballot there and you can vote that same day. So those are my big ones, but go to the website if you want to learn more about the campaign. If you want to know more about me, there's a contact link on there. We're really good at responding to emails. If you have any questions, slide into my DMs on social media. Like, we really try to get back to you and answer your questions because we believe in informed voting, and we want you to be comfortable that I've answered all your questions and that you feel comfortable voting for me.
All right, y'all have your marching orders. You heard
Yep.
her. For
Get
the
out
day,
there and
we are
vote.
Black versus the County Board of Supervisors. And we look forward to continuing the conversation when you get into office. And like I said, if your opponent ever wants to come and have a conversation with Black versus the Board of Education, we are down for that. And we'd love to know more about his platform and what he's doing. So with that, we are going to hit y'all with the peace sign. We will see you next week right here in studio. Peace.
Dr. Flo, is she off? Oh,
No, she's not. She's still on
okay.
there.